The number was exorbitant, $800 billion. I can't even say it. That's how big it was. All meant to help save the economy in the height of the pandemic in the form of loans from the federal government. Now, 2.5 years later, more than 90% of those loans, known as the Paycheck Protection Program, were forgiven. Christine Frizzau has the details.
In the height of the pandemic, as hospitals were filling up and businesses were shutting down, the federal government made a play to get help out to as many people as possible, as fast as possible.
In less than 2 months, the PPP is supporting the employment of approximately 50 million workers and more than 75% of the small business payroll in all 50 states.
The Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, was part of the initial CARES Act, signed by President Trump in March of 2020, but was reauthorized several times, including as part of the American Rescue Plan.
This plan gives small businesses in this country a fighting chance to survive.
But it turns out it also gave fraudsters a chance to thrive. The Small Business Administration's own Inspector General finding more than 70,000 loans totaling more than $4.6 billion were potentially fraudulent.
Everyone was put on notice at the height of the pandemic in April and May of 2020 that every single one of these higher end loans between $1 million and $10 million was going to be subject to an audit.
But new evidence shows once many of the loans were flagged, they were not investigated. In a new report entitled The Great Pandemic Swindle, the Project on Government Oversight found the vast majority of loans that had been flagged were swept away in the first weeks of 2021. Open the Book's Adam Andrzejewski says the rules were clear, just not always followed.
You had to have a necessary reason, a need to take the money, number one. Number two is you had to use the dollars for primarily payroll and other covered expenses.
At this point, more than 95% of those loans have now been forgiven. And while the Small Business Administration says it will try to get some of that money returned, it's raising some tough questions about how to better police our tax dollars for the next emergency. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzau.
The Biden administration has launched a beta website for those applying to have their student loans forgiven. President Biden announced last month to cancel up to $10,000 in student loan debt for people making less than $125,000 a year and up to $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients. Officials say the goal is to start processing applications ahead of January and to help save applicants time. If you use the beta site, you won't have to resubmit an application.